everybody to Mr. Boxing Guru. This is Sal, Mr. Boxing Guru. A big shout out to Los Anaya. That's Losanaya. That's Losanaya. Week after week, they bring back that great intro. Again, thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. I really, really do appreciate it. As of for me, you know what? I've been doing surprisingly well. I think I don't miss boxing as much as I thought I would. I think this has been a great time to explore me, to think of what I want in the future. What do I want to do? I think it's making me realize my goals and not only dream about them, but line them up to see what is it that the future is going to hold for me. And again, this is as a person. So when folks always tell me, "Oh, what do you think about this fight and that fight?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great and all." But the question I get the most is, do I miss boxing? And honestly, no, I don't. Look, I'm a big boxing fan, but do I miss the current state of boxing? No, absolutely not. Look, man, boxing, when the higher ups in boxing have the upper hand, they tend to do shit that undermine what really matters, and that's the paying customer, because they feel like, you know what, those fucking morons are always going to be there, so fuck them. They get their fights when they get their fights. And no, I don't miss the over-marination of a guy like Juanma Lopez versus Yuriorkis Gamboa. That fight took so long to make that by the time it was time to supposedly make it to the time it was actually marinated, it was a bust. Gamboa ended up, getting knocked out at every other fight, and then, Gamboa ended up jumping ships to 50 Cent. Gamboa ended up jumping ships with what it appeared to be like Golden Boy. Gamboa ended up jumping ships to PBC. So again, by the time it got time to do that fight, even Juanma Lopez was pretty much getting knocked out by lower tier opposition. So again, that over marination kind of fucked it up. And why? Because Top Rank and friends seem to have a different idea when the fight should happen. Top Rank usually pretty good at making certain fights, and here's one of the ones where they completely failed. And the only ones that really hurt, yes, were the fighters, because I think that was a legacy-making fight, whichever way it went. If it went towards Gamboa, I think that was a prime versus prime fight when it had to happen. And of course, the fans of each one of those fighters. I mean, Gamboa being one of the Cubans that everybody liked. Again, and Juanma Lopez being that Puerto Rican guy with that what was it, big right hand or big left hand? I'm sorry. As an eraser, that was just a fight that never happened. So that's one of the reasons I don't miss boxing. I don't miss Crawford not fighting Errol Spence. And a fight that arguably will never happen now. Once, because I think Spence is a big boy, and two, because Spence likes flying out of cars and drinking and driving. That's the type of shit that's the type of fights that's the reasoning more than anything because I don't miss certain boxing fights. Because Spence could have arguably been training for a new fight, but Spence has so much time in between that a fighter is very, very jittery. A fighter needs to be doing something. A fighter is super active. They need to be busy at all times. There's a reason why boxers used to fight 3 to 5 times a year. It's just that's the norm. And when you don't give a fighter the fights, they tend to find other shit to fucking focus on. In this case, fast cars and booze. And the way Errol Spence is shaped, I mean, it's only a matter of time before he was even supposed to go to 154. So that small window of opportunity to get a fight versus Errol Spence and Terence Crawford was very small. And again, the powers that are in boxing decided to say, fuck you fans, we'll make them whenever the fuck we want to make them. We won't make it whenever you guys want. And again, that's another opportunity lost to make a great fight. So therefore, fuck the boxing fan. And that's what happened there. I don't miss Danny Garcia never fighting a formidable opponent. Ever since the Lucas Matisse fight. Yes, he fought Keith Thurman, but again, even that fight was a little, Um, again, that's another wasted career. I think very highly of Danny Garcia. I think he's a great fighter. But again, the fact that he is okay with not making certain fights really pisses me off, because this generation, this it seems like they're only hurting themselves. And I'm not just talking about the younger generation. I'm talking about the millennial, I guess you could say, generation, where these guys are refusing to fight each other. And again, I'm not sure if it's just them, or if it's just people in their ear, or if it's just a common denominator. But the fact that they don't want to fight other career breaking or making fights, I think really hurts them in the long run. Well, yeah, those are the type of things that I don't miss from boxing. I don't miss Deontay Wilder not fighting Anthony Joshua, and both quite possibly ruining their careers to lesser opponents. And yes, by lesser opponents, I do mean the Gypsy King. I don't think the Gypsy King is as good as they paint him out to be. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a great mover. It's just not particularly my taste. It's not a fight that that's one has me jumping out of my seat, with the exception of his last fight. I think he did a great performance, but he's not necessarily that guy that I want to watch. Would I rather watch a Deontay Wilder? Yes. Would I rather watch a Anthony Joshua? Yes. Would I rather watch the Deontay Wilder fight Anthony Joshua? Absolutely. That's the fight we wanted to make. And now they are both a lesser version of themselves. And I'm not sure if I'm necessarily jumping out of my seat to ever see that fight, because I don't think it'll be the same. Yes, I'm okay with fighter not being undefeated, but it was that mystery there, that what would happen. This is the best heavyweight versus the best heavyweight, and one of them's credibility got lost a bit because he lost to a chubby little Mexican, and he ended up beating him again and getting his belts back, but he seemed very tentative in what he did, and of course Deontay Wilder, again, I thought he lost the first fight versus the Gypsy King, and then in the second fight, he just got his ass blown away. I don't think he won a minute or even a second of that fight. So will we ever see that fight? Probably. Will it be the same? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Till this day, it won't be good enough. And of course, another thing, I don't miss Canelo fighting Golovkin until he was old enough to be let in early at a Target, to get his essential meals nowadays. Canelo waiting and being interviewed fight after fight, and again this is how we're gonna age this quote unquote rivalry with Golovkin. HBO was still around, and they kept asking him, when are you gonna fight Golovkin? His answer was always like, yo no le temo ni al diablo, meaning, I'm not even scared of the devil. Great, then fucking fight this guy. Again, we're talking about when Golovkin was at the peak of his time. He was just running over fighters, whether they were lesser opposition or not. Here was a chance for Canelo to prove himself, to say, you know what, fuck this guy. Fuck these fighters that he's fighting. I'm going to fight the fucking monster that people are asking me to fight. But he never did. He waited and waited and waited, and knew that by making this fighter wait, he was eventually going to get jump out of his prime. He knew he was a little older. Guys that go forward don't seem to age as well as cute fighters, as boxer punchers. Golovkin was always aggressor, a bully in there. He fought to take your ass out of there. So he was never really it's not like, he's conserving himself by being cute, by saying on the outside. No, he always went and got his fight. Canelo people knew that. Golden Boy folks knew that. And they knew eventually this guy's legs are going to get tired, so they let the Jacobs fight happen. And after that Jacobs fight happened, of course, we saw that Golovkin wasn't that killer. I mean, yes, he hurt Jacobs at one point, but not really. And Jacobs, of course, being an okay fighter, he gave him a great fight. But at this point now, they said, okay, you know what? there's this angle now. Now we see what Golovkin can really do versus a good fighter. Now we'll take the fight. Again, this was Golovkin being, what, 36, 35? Again, past his prime, obviously. But yeah, that's what I don't miss. I mean, again, prime versus prime fights is something that boxing has given us, not when we won the fights, but when they decide to give us the fight. So if the boxing entities or the boxing bigwigs are being fucking hurt by fights not happening, hope this serves as a learning lesson for all of us. Do the fucking fights when they matter. And again, another thing I don't fucking miss is the WBC parading their ridiculous belts, all for attention, a percentage of, and of course a couple of ringside seats, just for them to fucking be there in the fucking place. Nobody gives a fuck about the Huichol belt. Mexicans don't give a fuck about the Huicholes. I mean, if they really gave a fuck about the Huicholes are some people in the fucking hills of Nayarit. And no one cares about, yes, you buy beads when you go to Mexico, but that's fucking about it. So don't make Huicholes, which are really native Indians, that I think we had maybe one native Indian Mexican fighter, and that was Ponce de Leon, acting like, they're this big part of Mexican culture, or of boxing culture, when they're fucking not. We have to know their place, and again, Huicholes have no place in boxing, nor do these Aztec warrior fucking belts at the WBC, or these leopard prints or whatever fucking belts. They don't belong in boxing, and neither does the WBC. I get it. We need some sort of entity, some sort of prize, some sort of trophy. But again, if they would keep a belt per weight division, I wouldn't be that upset. And again, I don't miss promotional companies bending over for their young, untested talent just because they have a shitload of Instagram followers. Guys, this is just crock of bullshit. The fact of the matter is that I get it. You have a kid that can so take as a kid that moves the needles. But the fact that you're doing a disservice to fighters just because they're popular, and a disservice to the boxing fan because you're trying to force feed them. And of course, marketing does work. Eventually people will catch on and say, okay, I want to watch this kid. I want to watch this kid. But the fact of the matter is that fuck him. Send him somewhere else, not to my DAZN subscription, which of course I already deleted. And of course I don't miss Chocolatito not fighting Gallo Estrada for the second time. They fought when they were very young, great. They both moved on to have great careers. We saw the great Chocolatito, as a super flyweight, make it into the HBOs, and of course, everybody knew back then that if you made it to the HBOs, you had some talent, and the fact that Chocolatito came from such small weights and he made it into HBO showed that he was a very special guy. He was able to open doors to many of the other smaller fighters, and big shout out to him for that. But now is the time to make the Gallo Estrada fight for Chocolatito. And again, it hasn't happened. The platform has been there for them. The money has been there for these fighters. The DAZNs are now taking over what the HBOs used to do. The ESPNs, the Showtimes, the money is there for these type of fighters to fight. Why don't they fight? I don't fucking understand. I don't fucking understand. And that's why maybe I'm not missing boxing as much as I should. Maybe this is the reason why I'm not posting on social media as much as I used to do. I mean, I'll post memes about random shit and about, coronavirus here and there. But I'm not missing boxing as much as most folks are. Maybe I'm a little more old school. Maybe I'm a little more traditional when it comes to fighting. But I haven't really seen great fights as much as I would like to. I really, again, and I can't emphasize this enough, I really, really hope this time off does help the higher powers of boxing and say, you know what? Maybe it's time to actually do fights. Maybe it's time to create some sort of farm system where we're actually pumping fights to boxing fans. And again, I'm not the one that likes to agree with the UFC, but they have a certain pathway to move fighters that's very impressive. Where yes, they're pumping them up. They're pumping them up a lot. Again, as far as their finance, I don't know. And again, it shouldn't be none of my business because again, it's not in my pocket. If it comes to doing it, showtimes and pay-per-views and whatnot, so be it. If it comes to the point where you have to pay a premium for these DAZN subscriptions, so be it. As long as we get the great fights. But let me not knock on boxing so much because you know what? At the same time, it's not fair. We did have some great fights last year. We did have Hooker versus Ramirez. We did have Pacquiao versus Thurman. We did get, of course, Golovkin versus Deverenchenko. And, of course, the one that topped it off was Inoue versus Donaire. So there were great fights out there. So I can't knock it completely. I'm just knocking it because of the possibilities. A lot of these fights that were great were fights that, in my opinion, went under the radar. Ramirez versus Hooker wasn't a big seller. Pacquiao Thurman, I think a lot of people thought Thurman was gonna win. Golovkin versus Deverenchenko, a lot of people thought Golovkin was gonna win, and he did, but not without controversy. Inoue versus Donaire, again, who didn't think Donaire was gonna get blown out by Inoue? But again, these type of magical fights happen sometimes by accident, and unfortunately, it's not in that big, huge platform that they deserve. And of course, who doesn't like to dream every once in a while? You do get upsets like Andy Ruiz upsetting the great Anthony Joshua, and of course, the Gypsy King upsetting Deontay Wilder on their second fight, which was an absolute masterpiece. And again, this is coming from a person that's not really a fan of the Gypsy King or his style, but what he was able to do that night was an absolute beauty. Guys, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I really, really appreciate you guys listening to this. I'm going to try to do more podcasts as ideas come about. Again, all these ideas that I get for shows, to do quick podcasts, do come because of questions that you guys ask me. Maybe I should start posting more on Instagram and on Twitter. Because sometimes I do get that DM, hey, do you remember this fight? Do you remember this? But as far as I would say the last 3-4 years, do I miss any of these fights? Very seldom do I miss a good fight. And again, even the last 4 fights that I mentioned that happened last year, or maybe in the beginning of this year, they were all great fights, but they were fights that weren't between big, blown-up names. And my thing is not fair to blow these names up and not give them the opportunity to really make a name for themselves, not the name that was embedded by a promotional company. Again, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and that alert whenever this pops up. Whenever a podcast is available, you guys are able to listen to it. Remember, I am on YouTube. I don't post a lot, but just the podcast on there. But I will try to come out with more content. I am on Instagram. As far as the podcast goes, I'm on Spotify, Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, and whatever other Android platform there's out there. So I am out there, guys. Again, I can't thank you guys enough for listening to the podcast, asking me when is the next one coming out. Here's the next one. It's coming out today, Tuesday, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. Again, thank you guys so much for listening to the Mr. Boxing Guru podcast. Thank you guys so much, and see you guys next week.
Dicen que lo fusilaron, otros que se fue muy lejos.